Hey guys, welcome back to Southern Gal True Crime. I hope everybody's doing well tonight. Still hot here, of course, but that's usual for Arkansas weather during the summer. Tonight, I have within the past week some new information has come out concerning Dennis Rader, who we all know is the BTK offender. Within the last week or so, there have been two different cases that have been possibly linked to Rader. So I've been researching the last couple of days and trying to find some whatever information is out there. So I have kind of a condensed version of what's been going on here on this channel. I usually don't cover a whole lot of the high profile cases. I usually stick to the smaller cases that don't get the national attention that these big cases do, because no matter how big or small, to me, every missing person case and unsolved cold cases are big in my heart. But I try to bring you the ones that don't get all the national media attention, to keep the victims' names out there so that they are never forgotten. I'm going to start off, if I can get it to work. Anybody who's watched any of my other videos knows I have at least once or 5 times during my videos, I have some kind of technical difficulty. But I just got a snippet of a video. And these two cases are, one is from Kansas and one is from Missouri. So I have the video of the sheriff, an interview he did with one of the local TV stations. And I can't remember if this is the Missouri case or the Kansas case, but I'm gonna get this video to work to let you know what he has to say, so you have a little bit of an idea of what's going on before we get into the cases.
100% the suspect.
Sheriff Eddie Vernon says his lead towards Dennis Rader as his prime suspect in the 1976 disappearance of Cynthia Kinney was a simple timeline of when BTK was active.
I came across information, of course, that he was an active serial killer during the time frame that Cindy Kinney went missing.
After looking into Rader's background, the sheriff took a trip to El Dorado and talked to the convicted killer in person.
Basically, all we told him, we were looking at an old case from 76, no details. And the first thing he said is, I only did the first 10.
After a lengthy conversation, it was the ending that really got the sheriff's attention.
As that conversation ended, he said, do you want to know about a fantasy I had that I never got to do? And I said, sure, why not? And he said, I always wanted to kidnap a girl from a laundromat.
All right, so that was part of the video or the interview with the sheriff I was telling you about. We all know that serial offenders like to play games after they're caught and take credit for offenses that they may not have had anything to do with, just to, for whatever reason or another. We can't even try to begin understanding the mind of a serial offender, but with this, it was a little specific. With the case about and that this will be the first case we'll take a look at tonight. Of it was so specific that he said that he had a fantasy of abducting somebody from a laundromat. Now, why would he bring that up? The sheriff said they didn't give any information about what case they were talking about, and he just so happens to have this fantasy about taking somebody, a lady or a girl, from a laundromat. So that, along with some other information that I found, we'll decide if we think these two cases I want to bring to you are connected to Dennis Rader or not. I can get my slides going. Okay, so we probably everybody here that's watching, or most people, know who Dennis Rader is. But for those who might not have heard of him, he was also known as the BTK offender. I have to be careful with what words I use. On YouTube, they don't like certain words, but I'm sure y'all can figure out what I'm talking about. Anyway, Dennis Rader, known as BTK, he gave himself that name. It stands for bind, torture, kill. He was a serial offender. He killed 10 people in Wichita and Park City, Kansas between 1974 and 1991. He sent taunting letters to police and media describing the details of his crimes. And in 2004, he resumed sending the letters. And in 2005, he was arrested, pled guilty, and he is now serving 10 consecutive life sentences. So now that everybody is caught up on Mr. Rader, who may not have known who he was, the first case we're going to take a look at, first we're going to take a look at this, because in the articles I've read, that another things detectives looked at was this journal entry from Dennis Rader's personal journal, talking specifically about, once again, the laundromat. He had what he called a PJ, or bad wash day. So this entry says, at BE of house, I'm assuming maybe he meant back entry, I'm just guessing, off 17th, had problem getting in or too much noise factor. The brunette was the target. I would watch the nearby laundromat for possible victims. Hit PJ, bad wash day. Laundromats were a good place to watch victims and dream. Sometimes I have a pair of women's underwear on, and after watching a girl or lady, he goes into the bathroom and I think he says relieves himself. We all know what that means. So that's just, like I said, there was a entry from his journal. And because authorities, they said they've been taking all this evidence so far that they found into consideration. So the journal entry, this comment he made about abducting somebody from a laundromat, and they have searched two of within the last couple of weeks, they have searched two of Dennis Rader's properties. I believe both of them were in Kansas. I'm not sure. And have maybe found some evidence that linked two new cases, possibly to Dennis Rader. Oh. So the first one we're going to take a look at is Cynthia Dawn Kinney. Hold on, I got stuff in my way. She told you, technical difficulties. All right, so the first one we're going to take a look at is Cynthia Dawn Kinney. She went missing on June 23rd, 1976, from Osage, Oklahoma. She is classified endangered missing, a white female. She was 16 years old when she disappeared, and if she were still alive today, she'll be 63. So almost, that's 47 years. That's very, very, very cold case. She was 5'1", 97 pounds. Last seen wearing a peach colored blouse, blue jeans. Associated vehicles, and we'll get into the information about this vehicle. Faded beige 1965 Plymouth Belvedere. Cynthia was last seen in Osage, Oklahoma, June 23rd, 1976. She was working at a laundromat that was owned by her aunt and uncle. Disappeared from there, never been seen again. After her disappearance, Cynthia's purse and drink were found at the laundromat, along with a half-eaten donut. Witnesses said that she left the laundromat at about 9:30 a.m. and she got into a faded beige 1965 Plymouth Belvedere with two people. And one witness said that the two people were a man and a woman, and the other witness said that it was two women in their 20s. So we'll just take that for what it is. All the experts that I've watched, true crime experts, former law enforcement, said that eyewitnesses are notoriously unreliable in most cases, not all, but we'll just keep in mind what these two witnesses said. After her disappearance, there were several reported sightings of Cynthia. She was supposedly traveling around southern Kansas with a religious group, but authorities were never able to confirm these sightings. To me, this supposedly her being abducted or traveling around with some kind of religious group, whatever you want to call it, kind of might tie back to the two witnesses that said that they saw Cynthia get into the car with these two, either a man and a woman or two younger women. I could just, imagine or see, she might have gone outside and was walking around in front of the laundromat, and these two people from possibly a religious group or a cult or whatever the case may be sees this, young girl by herself, calls her over, entices her some way to get into the vehicle with her, either willingly or, like I said, enticed her some way. She got into the vehicle and they took off, and she was never seen again. Possibility, All right. At the time of her disappearance, Cynthia was a junior in high school. She was popular, had good grades. She was a cheerleader. Sounds like she had a lot going for her, had a good life going. She is missing under suspicious circumstances, obviously, and may have been taken against her will. So that's the point I was trying to make about the witnesses and the getting in the car and et cetera, et cetera. All right. So another witness said that she had seen a man named Hobart Green with Cynthia just minutes before she disappeared. But this alleged sighting, was not reported until 1991. So about 15 years after Cynthia goes missing, this person comes forward with this alleged information. But the interesting thing about I shouldn't say interesting, the horrifying thing about this Mr. Hobart Green was that he is also a suspect in the 1961 disappearance of his ex-wife, Maxine Green. Her body was never found, and he has never been charged in her case. But the couple's daughter, who was 12 years old at the time, said that she witnessed her father kill her mother and bury the body. I might have to research this case more and do a video on this case, but and then he was also pled guilty to a second degree in the death of his infant son. So this Mr. Hobart Green is not a good person, in my opinion. Whether or not I think he had anything to do with Cynthia's disappearance, I wouldn't think so. I did look up his ex-wife Maxine's info, I believe, here on the this information came from charleyproject.org, and I think that situation was more of a domestic situation. I think she had either already filed for divorce or they were already divorced, and she had the days that she went missing earlier that day, she had gone to trying to think of what opposite would be. Anyway, she had gone to try to get more child support. And apparently an argument had ensued and she disappeared. So I would think that's more of a maybe, well, I'll say one-off, but a third or second killing situation for Mr. Green. All right. So in 2023, Dennis Rader did say that authorities had interviewed him 2 different times about Cynthia's disappearance. And Rader's daughter, Carrie Rawson, I think is her name, said that Cynthia's disappearance, maybe possible abduction, did not resemble her father's crimes, which involved stalking and some home invasion attacks on victims. So, in other words, she is saying that his MO, or the MO, was different from how her father committed his crimes. The sheriff, which was the sheriff you saw in the video, Eddie Verdon, told a local news outlet that during the time, the day, or around the time that Cynthia disappeared, that the bank that was across the street from the laundromat was having new alarms installed. And he did his research, and he said that Rader was a regional installer for ADT at that time, but he wasn't able to confirm that Dennis Rader was the one that installed the systems on the bank across the street. And that Mr. Rader was also involved in Boy Scouts in the area, so I'm taking that, assuming that he meant Rader would have been in the area at the time, possibly that Cynthia disappeared. The undersheriff said that this investigation spiraled out from Cynthia's case into other unsolved homicides and missing persons cases. He said, we just sit on the other side of the state line from Kansas and Wichita, which is his stomping grounds. And they were following leads based off their investigations, and they just unpacked other missing persons, started looking into other missing persons cases, and so on. And that's what led them to this point. He said that Rader is also the prime suspect in the death of 22-year-old Shauna Beth Garber. Her remains were discovered in December of 1990 in Missouri. And an autopsy revealed that she had been essayed, strangled, and restrained with different bindings about 2 months before her body was found, and then her remains were identified in 2021. So we will take a look at, and this was Grace Doe. Her remains were discovered December 2nd, 1990. It was a skeletal remains. They estimated her date of death as possibly Halloween of 1990. And her remains were found bound. She was found in a weeded area in a remote area that was close to, right beside an abandoned farmhouse. And this was in Pineville, or between Lanigan and Pineville, Missouri. Now, this is the terrifying part, or the piece of information that sticks out in my head. She was hogtied with 6 different kinds of material. She was bound with nylon rope. She was bound with lead rope. When I first read this, I first thought it was lead rope, but obviously that makes no sense. So I'm assuming they mean lead rope, like the kind of rope you would have if you're leading a horse around. That's just my assumption. Coaxial cable, telephone cable, parachute cord, and clothesline. So whoever did this, regardless if it's Dennis Rader or somebody else, were very determined and spent a lot of time to use 6 different types of binding. To me, that just says to me that there's a lot of psychopathy going on. That was very important to have for the victim to be bound. It's just, like I said, it's terrifying, and it kind of gives us a glimpse, even though we might not want it, into the mind of a possible serial offender, psychopath, whatever you want to call them. They said the parachute cord is believed to have been military issued because it was not commercially available in 1990. And I don't know, I can't remember if Dennis Rader ever was had any military history or not. I haven't really looked very deep into BTK. Of course, I know I've heard of it, but I just haven't researched it in depth. Because of the way that she was bound, both hands behind the back and tied to one leg with a shoelace, it is believed that she was also SA'd. A single blonde hair not belonging to the victim was found on the body, and investigators believe the victim may have been killed at or near the location that her body was found. And this is based on a witness statement that said that they heard screaming on Halloween night that was in about the same time in the same area as where the body was found, or the remains were found. And she was dubbed Grace Doe. Now, I read in one of the articles I was reading, and I do link all of the articles and information that I use. There are links to all of it in the description box, so feel free to go and read all these articles that I got all this information from. But in one of them, it said that she was dubbed Grace Doe, and this was because one of course, after they found her remains, they were sent to all these different labs to be tested for DNA and things of that nature. And apparently one of the people that worked in the lab told one of the investigators that it would be by the grace of God that this person was ever identified. So the investigator dubbed her Grace Doe. So that brought a little tear to my eye when I read that. It's just good to know that all these detectives and investigators out there, they really truly care about these cases that they investigate, and they want to find a resolution for the victim's families. So I just thought that was a special little touch there, that the investigator dubbed her Grace Doe. So the physical description of Grace Doe, her estimated age was between 21 and 31 years old, white, possibly mixed with Native American, 5'1" to 5'4", 120 pounds, with dark brown, collar-length, wavy hair, unknown eye color, with a slender build. So it's just amazing how they can, these professionally scientists, lab people, whatever you want to call them, can get this much information from just skeletal remains. It's always fascinated me. I still am and was a big fan of the show Bones when it was on. If any of you guys ever watched it, you know what I'm talking about. It was just always amazed me that they just can, just with bones, like I said, with bones, they could just deduce, that most of this information. Anyway, I'm babbling again. So fast forward to January of 2021, and like I said, the remains were sent out all over to all these different labs to, with the DNA evidence, and they're trying to identify who this victim was. So in 2021, the sheriff's office received information from Othram Incorporated, which I'm assuming is one of the independent labs that do this genetic genealogy research. Said that there were candidate relatives identified for Grace Doe. So, grace of God, it happened. They found possible genetic links to family members, relatives. These candidates obviously were identified through genealogy research performed by Othram's in-house research team, and they asked the sheriff's office to contact candidate relatives and investigators made contact with a lady named Danielle Pixler. And Miss Pixler was on the genealogical tree developed by Othram. So, good news. During the conversation, Miss Pixler stated that she had a half-sister named Shauna Garber, and that they had been in foster care in Garnett, Kansas. And then she went back into state care, and Danielle did not know what happened with Shauna after she left foster care. And she had been looking for Shauna for over 28 years. So can you imagine? You've been searching for your half-sister, and I believe in one article I read, the information said that there was also a brother involved. And I think that, if I remember correctly, that Danielle and the brother were full brother and sister, and then Shauna was their half-sister. But after 28 years, through genetic genealogy, once again, we're seeing more and more of these cases that are being solved, or at least getting information from genetic genealogy. They found their sister. I just think that is amazing over such a long period of time. So Danielle contributed a DNA sample, which the Topeka, Kansas Police Department took a swab, sent it to one of the lieutenants, and then the lieutenant sent the DNA sample to Othram. They tested it, and Grace Doe was identified. So the grace of God was definitely working. So here's where we get to the new information that's come out. So this year, authorities announced that serial offender Dennis Rader is the primary suspect in Shauna's killing. And this says, and I think this information came from Wiki fandom. So we'll put a grain of salt with it. Said that he was the prime suspect due to photographic evidence found in one of his journals, which is believed to tie him to the crime scene of Grace Doe. So like I said, I don't know that much about Wiki fandom. I've come across some information on some cases that I've researched from there, but I don't know how reliable it is. But I just wanted to include all possibilities as far as the information that I found, so you can decide for yourself if you think they're connected. Now, McDonald County, which is in Missouri, Sheriff Rob Evanson told a local TV station that Dennis Rader has denied any involvement in Shauna's death, of course. Well, I say of course, but like I said, the beginning, a lot of these serial offenders that have been caught will take credit for these cases that they don't have anything to do with, to build their cred or whatever. I said, who knows what goes on in the mind of these people, but anyway. Evanson said that they had worked with the Oklahoma investigators in the past, but so far there has been no direct evidence linking Rader to the case. So, and this is coming from the sheriff, so we might put a little bit more merit on that than we did to the other information that said that he had been linked by photographic evidence. And I believe I read that they had been, what they said, excuse me, for years, have been trying to link Dennis Rader to this case. So either they're, in my opinion, either grasping at straws, or they actually did find some evidence that does possibly link Rader to Shauna's case. So on Tuesday, and I believe this was Tuesday of last week or the week before, it's within the last week and a half, the Osage County Sheriff's Office searched a property in Park City, Kansas that was formerly owned by Dennis Rader. And this says that Upton, which is the undersheriff, I think it was, said that the sheriff's office has given a significant amount of evidence to the law enforcement in Missouri investigating the killing of Shauna, and that the sheriff's office believes that Rader to be involved in that case due to the evidence that was found. So now we've got a second, I would call credible source that says, because this comes from the sheriff's office, that said that due to evidence that they've either found on these two properties that they've searched this past week or so, in addition to other evidence that they've already found before, that they can, and one of the articles once again said that the sheriff said that he was 100% sure that Dennis Rader was linked to this crime and possibly to Cynthia Kinney, the first one we took a look at. Time will tell when they, I'm sure they're not going to release any other information until they do more investigating, test the evidence, and possibly find DNA, although I don't know if that's possible after all these years, if it was buried in the ground. To find DNA, I suppose it is maybe possible. It says, he goes on to say that the operation was aimed at collecting items of evidentiary value based on specific leads that the Osage County Sheriff's Office had received. Like I said, this current new search and all the other information that they've collected over the years has led them to this point. The ongoing investigation has uncovered potential connections to other missing persons cases and unsolved killings in the Kansas and Missouri areas, which are possibly linked to Dennis Rader. The Sheriff's Office also said they had been working alongside the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, and they had shared crucial information and collaborating on this case. It says that they have uncovered potential connections to a local missing person and homicide cases that may be connected to BTK. And they don't say it, but the two cases we took a look at, Cynthia Kinney and Shauna Garber, are the two cases they're talking about. Lost my place as usual. And plus the writing's small, so with my old eyes, it's hard for me to see. Anyway, they had found items of interest recovered from Rader's former residence, and they will undergo a thorough investigation to determine their potential relevance to the ongoing investigations. So, like I said, that's their preliminary findings that they have. Hopefully, possibly maybe they can definitively tie it back to Dennis Rader, and these two cases will be solved. Family will have some closure, get some justice for these victims. But like I said, it's just a waiting game. We'll have to wait and see till they complete their investigation and their testing on this new evidence and see where it leads. So, after this condensed version information that I've given to you, do you think that either Cynthia Kinney, Shauna Garber, or both, or neither, could possibly be related to Dennis Rader? To me, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, to me, Cynthia Kinney, always possible, anything's possible. But I think most likely she was probably I won't say definitely, but most likely abducted by someone, obviously. I'm not really thinking it's Dennis Rader. Like I said, I don't know for sure. None of us know for sure. I would put a little bit more merit into the fact, or these two witnesses that in her case that said that they saw her go outside the laundromat and get into a car with either a man and a woman or two women, and she was never seen again. I would probably lean more towards that in this case. Now, when it comes to Shauna Garber, I would say there's, in my opinion, a pretty good possibility that it could be Dennis Rader, for the fact that it's close to, as they called, his stomping grounds. She was definitely bound with 6 different kinds of material, binding material. If I was going to pick one of the two, I would say that Shauna Garber is probably, in my opinion, the one that most likely could possibly be have been committed by Dennis Rader. I said that's just my opinion, but I would love to hear what you guys think. So please do let me know in the comments. Just always, all I ask is you be respectful of the victims families, and each other. But do let me know what you think. I'll get to your comments. I think that's all I have for you tonight. Yep. if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. If you like what I do here at Southern Gal True Crime, hit the notification bell to all so you won't miss any new videos I upload. I try to upload new videos on Mondays, Wednesdays, or Fridays. Try to do 1 to 2 videos a week. I usually have been doing my Missing Person Monday on Mondays and my Cold Case of the Week on Fridays. Sometimes on Wednesdays, if there's any new information that comes out, like on this case about some of the more high-profile cases, I will do a video on it, condensed version. So yeah, just I appreciate you hanging out with me once again. Until next time, please take care of yourself. Be careful out there. Take care of each other. That's the most important thing we can do in this world, is take care of our fellow human beings. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.